Hi and welcome back to Piano Chords 101. Hopefully the information that we talked about C major in the last session is starting to feel quite comfortable. If not, and you're concerned that we didn't use all of those chords when we're playing Imagine, don't worry. There's a lot of crossover, a lot of overlap between these keys. We're going to meet some of these chords several times over the course of the course. Before we crack on, let's talk about a little bit of theory. You might have noticed, if you didn't know this already, that each key has one or two immediately adjacent black keys. Now these are our sharps and flats, which we'll need to add to make our major scales sound correct. All we need to know at this point is, slightly to the right of our key, we have a sharp. It's to the right because it's slightly higher than our bass note, than our natural note. So this is G, and it's here, it's G sharp. And going the other direction, the exact opposite, from G down to here, towards the lower pitched end of the piano, we find our flat note, which is ever so slightly lower in pitch. So this is G, and this is G flat. Now that's all you need to know. Couple of questions, couple of things you're probably thinking. Yep, G flat is the same as F sharp. Okay, they're called enharmonics. As long as you know which note you're talking about, doesn't really matter at this point. The other thing, E does not have a sharp note. F does not have a flat note. Same for B and C. Nothing to worry about. We don't really need them. That's largely why they're not there. So if you've signed up to piano groups online or delved into theory just a little bit, you've probably come across the circle of fifths. It's often described using this complicated looking picture. Now the circle of fifths is a really useful concept, but this picture, in my opinion, is only useful if you already know what the circle of fifths is. So we're going to forget that. Here's how I'd like you to think about it. Each key, each family that we are dealing in is defined by the sharps or flats that we have to put in to make that major scale sound correct. As we know from our last session, C doesn't have any sharps or flats, so that's why it's always our starting point. Now, think back to when we numbered our notes. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. If we go round 5 from C, we land on G. Now, C has no sharps, and G has one sharp note. Now by the end of this session, you're going to know the scale of G major. So we're going to count up that. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And that lands us on D. And D has two sharps. One sharp that we added in the G major scale, plus a new one that we're adding that makes it into D. And that continues throughout the keys, or as we often say, around the circle of fifths. Now, that's a fairly fly-by-night, glossed over explanation of the circle of fifths. I don't want you to worry too much about it. I just wanted you to understand our journey through the keys is not random. Now, on to G major. So let's start as ever by finding our major scale. I could tell you what the sharp is, but let's see if we can truffle that out using our ears. We'll start with a G, and we're going to play those 8 notes. Hopefully one of those sounded incorrect to you. Think about what that major scale sounds like. So far, so good. Okay, hopefully that F is sounding incorrect to your ears. And we know we need to make a note sharp in G, right? So that's what we're going to do. We're going to make that F into F sharp. Now let's try that again. C, D, E, F sharp, G. And hopefully on hearing that, your ears are now happy. Long story short, G major has one sharp, and that's F. So we're going to do exactly the same exercise as we did with C in the key of G. We'll start with our play one, skip one, play one, skip one, play one, equally spaced root position chord formation. There we go. And that is G major. We met it in the key of C. If we move it up to the right, A, C, E. Again, we met this one in the last session, that's A minor. Now, if we move up to B, we end up with B and D and F. Now, if you listen to that chord, it sounds different to the happy and sad chords we've been dealing in up to now. And that's because we've got that F. And in our key signature, that wants to be F sharp. So we end up with B, D, skip E and play F sharp. And there we have sad sounding chord like we used to. Thumbs on B, B minor. Next chord up to the right, C, E, G. Should know what that is by now. We move up again and we've got D, F, A. Now we know this chord, we met it in the last session, that's D minor. But in our key signature, we're going to make that F sharp. And that gives us D major. The 5 chord is major. We'll come back to the pattern in a minute. And then we move one more to the right, E, G, B, and we've got another chord that we already know, E minor. Now notice our pattern, major, minor, minor, major, major, minor, is the same as it was for C. So our next common hand movement is what I call expanding down. And as the name suggests, it's exactly the opposite of expanding up. So let's take our G chord again. G, B, D. And we're going to go to a D chord. Now G, G, B, D, and our D major in this key signature is D, F sharp, and A. So we've got our pinky on a D, so we're going to keep that. And what we're going to do is reach downwards with our other 2 fingers and pick up D, F sharp, A. So that's G and D, and then G major, and then D major. Now, what you might notice, or what I hope you notice, is that expanding up took us from the 1 chord, 1, 2, 3, 4. That's upwards. Expanding downwards takes us 1 to 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That's one of the reasons that these movements are so useful, because 1 and 4 and 5 are some of the most common chords in popular music. Speaking of which, let's put them in a song. So we're going to look really quickly at the last section of Brown Eyed Girl. This song goes from G to C to G to D to G to C, etc., etc. And this is how we're going to do it. Again, remembering to add our left hand bass notes that match the chord. We're going to start with the root position G, and then expand up to hit our C, and then revert to our equally spaced position, and then we're going to stretch down, expand down to D, G, up to C, back to G.